The jurisprudence is supposed to tell legislatures what to do because that's whose job it is to draw maps. In fact, what they have created is a situation that creates a litigation game. It tells courts, it really is a roadmap for courts on how to redo the whole thing. And that's not what they're supposed to do. And we started to move away in the Charleston County decision that came out last year, where Justice Alito very clearly said federal judges aren't supposed to be drawing these maps. Well, hallelujah, and thank you for that, because they aren't. The Constitution says the legislature is supposed to draw the maps, but when you get into litigation in one of these cases, everything the legislature did goes out the window. It becomes a litigation game of experts and fact-finding by a federal court judge, which is extremely difficult to get overturned by courts of appeal and by the Supreme Court. So you're handcuffed once those factual findings are made. And that's where we were in Robinson. We were handcuffed by the factual findings of the judge that were not reversed by the Court of Appeal and were aligned very closely by design, in my opinion, to the Alabama case. And so we were not in a good position in Robinson, but now we're actually addressing the issue that we tried to raise in Robinson.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
If you're looking to invest in physical precious metals or convert your 401k to a precious metals backed IRA, please consider making your investment with our trusted partner, Metal Stacks. Their prices regularly beat the big sites and they have no credit card fees or minimums. Shipping is free for orders over $500. Just visit metalstacks.com/dwalker or get there from our website, freedomstate.us. If you're interested in the IRA conversion, drop me a message at danielle@freedomstate.us and I can get you connected with their white glove service. Well, hello, everybody. Apologies for that. Tech issues right out of the gate this morning, but we won't let them hold us back. Welcome to the State of Freedom. My name's Danielle Walker, and I am joined by my co-host, Chris Alexander. Sorry.
Good morning, Danielle.
I know. Way to just come right out of the gate. But Chris, it's good to have you back in the saddle after you were out sick last week. We are coming to you live on Voice of the People USA TV and radio network on Rumble, X, YouTube, and Facebook. Wherever you're watching, please give us a like, a thumbs up, and a share. It helps us gain visibility. It helps us with the algorithms. Comment in the chat. We love hearing your thoughts. We want you to be involved with us. And joining us today is a friend of the show and a guest we have not had on in a while. And frankly, we have missed her. Louisiana's Attorney General Liz Murrill has been busy going after child predators and most recently a gaming app that enables them to illicitly connect with children. We are so pleased to have you with us today, Attorney General Murrill. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's great to be with y'all all the time. Thank you for having me, Danielle.
Absolutely. Let me get into the scripture of the day before we talk about all these things that are going to make us rage. The scripture today is 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 8 through 9. And it says, let's see, just as the scriptures say about 8 through 9, yes, God is more than ready to overwhelm you with every form of grace so that you will have more than enough of everything, every moment, and in every way. He will make you overflow with abundance in every good thing you do, just as the scriptures say about the ones who trust in him. Because he has sown extravagantly and given to the poor, his kindness and generous deeds will never be forgotten. And this is a reminder of the goodness, the care, and the grace of God. And I found what was interesting here to be that the one who is given extravagantly to the is considered by the scriptures to be one who trusts in God. So if you're having trouble trusting in God, you may need to increase your giving because the two go hand in hand. Generosity and giving does not go unnoticed by the Lord. Caring for people, especially those who are vulnerable, does not go unnoticed by him. And his abundance will flow into every area that we pour out our time, our finances, our particular skill set. He sees it all and he rewards it all.
Absolutely, and it's a daily process, that kind of surrender for sure, Danielle. But it's something that we have to daily commit to for sure. Um, Attorney General Liz Murrill,
Y'all, I'm having
it is
tremendous
such a
bandwidth issues
pleasure to
here.
have
I'm
you
not
with us
really sure
today.
what's going on.
Thank you, Chris.
Let's talk about this. Your most recently, the suit of Roblox. I was reading about this platform this morning, and I was blown away about what appear, Liz, to be almost no safeguards to protect vulnerable minors. And you are calling national attention to that.
Yeah, look, this is an app that is dangerous by design. It was built this way without these protections or with extremely low level protections to drive up user engagement. That is the name of the game with an app. You're trying to drive your numbers up. They've very successfully done that with this particular app to the point that they have something like 81 million users every day at any given moment active on this app. And a large number of those are children. So my statistics show, and I think these come from Roblox, that about 60% of their user base, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of people, are under the age or 16 or under, and 40% of them are under the age of 13.
Yeah. And the specific allegation, and I think this is powerful language, as it says that, the wildly popular site has perpetuated an environment where sexual predators, quote, thrive, unite, hunt, and victimize kids. And that is very
That's right.
powerful. And I think based upon what you're seeing and what appears to be the case, 100% true.
Yeah, and the owner, the person who kind of started this app is still the largest, I think, shareholder. They went public a few years ago, and so now you have uh, you know, private equity groups that are driving the train when it comes to pushing up and pushing the folks that are in control to drive up their user engagement. And so if they put the kinds of controls in place that I would like to see, limiting children's ability to talk to strangers on this app for starters, you would probably see a drop in user engagement. You would certainly see a limit on user engagement. If we got rid of children that are under the age of 12, or I mean, just for the fun of it, talking about it, let's say under the age of 10, you would drop a significant number of users out of this app, and that would affect their numbers enormously, and that would affect the view of the app and their growth numbers that they see, and the private equity groups would see that as well. So it's a problem when your stock price is driven by user engagement and your user engagement is driven by allowing sex predators access to your platform.
Yeah.
And
At,
forgive
at
me if
what
I missed
point
part of
does
the.
it go from, yeah.
Sorry, Chris. I was just going to say, forgive me if I missed part of the conversation because my bandwidth has been totally messed up this morning. So I kind of was a little bit delayed. But some of the games that I've seen on this app one was called Escape to Epstein Island. One is called Diddy Party. I mean, there cannot be any doubt that they intend to foster an environment that harms children with games like that. Has this raised some eyebrows of parents?
It has. I mean, I think that it's drawn, the lawsuit itself has drawn the attention of a lot of parents who probably didn't understand how dangerous this game is to their kids. And just to put a finer point on it, it's not just one game like that. They call them experiences. There are hundreds of them. And so, they get popular. Someone creates one, and then somebody creates another one. And then all of a sudden, there's hundreds of them. There's one called a public bathroom simulator. There are bedroom experiences where people can congregate. There are these sort of party experiences where people can all be naked through their avatars. It's their avatars that are naked. But in one of those experiences, a 7-year-old girl's avatar was raped by two male avatars. this mom is having to explain to the daughter what rape is and what happened to her virtually, basically. The whole thing is just a super problem. And that's before you even get to the grooming that's occurring through the apps, through these experiences where they can talk to your child and then potentially move your child off the app to another place where they can talk even more in another protected environment. And we see that happening where they'll move them to another app, and Discord is one of the main places we see them doing that. And we know this because we track the sex predators through our Internet Crimes Against Children unit when we get tips, and we can find them frequently on these apps.
Yeah. Is the goal, the ultimate goal here, to completely dismantle Roblox?
Not
I mean,
necessarily, Chris. I mean, I have said they need to fix it or they need to shut it down. I mean, I would like to see them fix it. It's it's not my objective necessarily to go put a business out of business, but I do think that they need to fix it, and they have tools to do so. There are other apps that are using much more aggressive tools that have meaningful age verification in place. Roblox had not been using meaningful age verification. It had not actually been policing its own app adequately. They only had 3,000 monitors on an app that has something like 300 million users, 81 million daily users, and they only had 3,000 monitors on the app. I mean, that's compared to TikTok, which also has problems, as you know. I've sued them as well. They have something like 123,000 of them. By comparison, when you look at the amount of users that they have and the number of children that they have, and the problem that they have with predators accessing children through their app, it demands more from them than what they've provided.
yeah. And what is the
Yeah.
civil action seeking, Liz? What's the ultimate
We're
objective?
seeking fines, penalties, and injunctive relief. So if they don't voluntarily fix it, then we're going to get an injunction that forces them to fix it. And I think that is part of the objective. They have, in my view, engaged in deceptive trade practices. They have made deceptive comments that have led parents to believe that this app is safe for their children, and it clearly is not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
And
either
Liz, you post.
fix
Oh,
the
sorry. Go
problem
ahead, Chris.
or go fix the problem or go away.
Right. Yeah.
I
I
like
mean, we
that.
don't let sex predators into our parks. We don't let them into our schools. I think they have created basically a public venue where the sex predator can thrive and hunt and groom children. And we would not allow that anywhere where children are so prevalent in society. I don't know why we would allow it through an app.
Yeah. Well said. Well, thank you for bringing the suit, Liz. I saw on your X page a few days ago, you pinned a statement and it says, and I'll just read it for the audience. For the past 10 years, we've seen an increase of 1,200% in reported cyber tips. I'm working tirelessly with law enforcement across the state and our Louisiana Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force to protect kids from sex predators. Now, is that what accounts in your view for the 1,200% increase? Is it just the sheer access to internet and device use that's gone up exponentially, or something else?
I think it is. I think 100% it's social media. It's the ability to it's the expansion of all these apps online that allow chat rooms and encrypted messaging and things like Roblox, where you can create these experiences that attract children and then attract predators and don't have a meaningful way of sorting them out and kicking the predator out and tracking the predator. We had one individual who was tracking predators on the app and reporting them to Roblox, and he was banned. So I'd like to see more banning of sex predators and less banning of people who report them. But I do think that it is 100. Those statistics, I believe, are accounted for by the expansion of social media and access to children through social media.
Liz, if you're successful in the suit, one of two things will happen. Either they're going to have imposed these restrictions and these limitations and these safeguards, or they're going to dismantle as a company, and that would be the alternative that you would promote if they did not follow through with what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, look, they need to be much more socially responsible about what they are doing and legally responsible for what they're doing. So I would like to, see them lean in a lot more heavily. If they're going to be the leader in this space, then they should be the leader in protecting children in this space. And they need to do more than just, give it, kind of feeble promises, which they've made, which have turned out not to be accurate. That's just lip service. And I think they need to do more than give it lip service. There is, meaningful outreach that we can do with parents. If we collect fines from Roblox for their conduct, then that's what I would use that money for, is to fund more outreach to parents so they will understand how to protect their children. What's so sad is that we have felt like our children were safe if they were in our house and in their bedroom, and they're really not. They're not safe if they're online.
Yeah, that's so true, and that's just a note of caution for every parent in the state of Louisiana. No question about that. You cannot be too involved because it's everywhere. There's no question. But what you're doing to put a wall between perversion and really what is evil and our children is admirable, and no doubt it'll be successful. Would your office consider a criminal prosecution if that's statutorily possible, Liz? If you were to determine that some of this was intentional, I'm talking about on the part of Roblox itself. Are they intentionally allowing this traffic on their platform, or is it just a case where they're just woefully negligent?
Look, I think they are knowingly allowing this on their platform. It's been reported numerous times to them. The statistics are appalling, and with the low level of reporting tips to the National Centers for Exploited and Trafficked Children. So, I think that the numbers themselves are very damning. I would consider that if it were the right case, but that would involve a particular child who's been trafficked or exploited or abused through Roblox, and it would be a difficult prosecution for something like that. I would rather see them change it and protect the millions of children who use their app, and to take responsibility for aggressive protection of children instead of aggressively protecting predators.
Yeah. And then if they fail to do so at some point, perhaps there is a level of criminal culpability.
Well, when you're doing it and you're doing it intentionally, and we can tie that to the conduct, then I think we have a case.
Yeah. What about redistricting? Arguments, United States Supreme Court, October 15th. And the question by the Supreme Court is, does the Voting Rights Act, or Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, violate the 14th Amendment to the Constitution that prohibits racial discrimination? That's the central question, it seems. What is the Attorney General's position now on this issue as far as this district that was drawn in 2024?
So, it's kind of nuanced, Chris, I'll tell you, because I don't think you can kind of understand where we are now unless you understand how we got here. So, our position on the question that was presented for re-argument is that you can't violate the Equal Protection Clause in response to a Section 2 violation. And we've also more aggressively taken the position that I think Justice Kavanaugh explained it in his dissent, that we think that the kind of aggressive use of Section 2 to draw majority minority maps is unconstitutional. And we argued that. We have argued that in other cases that are now pending. The State House and Senate maps case has this issue in it, where we are the defendant in a case that was brought about the same time as the original 2021 lawsuit in the Robinson case. So to understand where we are right now in the Calais case, you have to go all the way back to the Robinson case, which was the original case that challenged our 2021 map. And I defended that map, and I've never abandoned the defense of that map. And when I testified in the legislature on the new map that I'm defending partially, I explained that we had lost time and time and time and time again in the courts, and that Judge Dick was going to draw the map, or we could draw the map. And so if we drew the map, then we could protect our political preferences in the drawing of the map. But there was no situation where we weren't going to have a new map. And so we could draw our own map, protect our political preferences in the process, and then proceed from there.
Yeah.
The problem that we've had is with the jurisprudence. And if you go back and you look at the Fifth Circuit opinion that came out on our preliminary injunction, that decision came out after our case had been kicked back out of the Supreme Court, the Robinson case. So if you remember, I did get cert granted on that case. It sat for about a year while the court heard the Alabama case. And then they kicked our case back out again after issuing the Alabama ruling against Alabama. They further muddled the jurisprudence in the Miller decision. I mean, just, it's impossible to make sense out of that decision. It says you have to think about race when you draw a map under Section 2 to solve a Section 2 violation, but you can't think about it too much or you'll violate the Equal Protection Clause.
Yeah.
So, nobody could understand that, least of all legislatures whose job it is to draw these maps.
Yeah.
And we have complained about that all along. And when we went to the Supreme Court back in March, we said, you need to fix this. Like, we don't want to be here and we don't want to be back here. And here we are back in the very same case in, with a decision, with a question that we now are briefing and we're briefing it differently than we did before, because the question that they've posed is essentially the question that we posed in the Robinson case. And so, we've been pushing this issue up to the Supreme Court, but we got slapped down in the Robinson case where we pushed this issue up, and we were told, go back and draw your map. So we drew our map.
Yeah.
And now they, I think 5 of them don't like the map. I counted 5 who didn't like the map when I sat at oral arguments in March, but they couldn't quite articulate what their position was going to be, I guess, because we never got an opinion. And now we will. I believe we will get an opinion. And, I can't say I know what will happen. I've long ago abandoned predicting how Supreme Court opinions will go. It was surprising to see this re-argument because this is the 4th time in the history of the United States Supreme Court they've scheduled a case for re-argument.
Yeah. So do you think it's likely that the Supreme Court is going to go broader than simply Calais and use that as a precedent to declare Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act unconstitutional entirely?
They could. So, I do think they'll go beyond the facts of our case. I don't think they're going to issue a ruling that's just limited to our facts in our case. I don't think they would have scheduled it for re-argument if that was the intent. I do think that there is a space where they don't have to go full throttle and declare Section 2 unconstitutional. That would involve kind of rejiggering all of the jurisprudence that they've written, explaining so here's the trick box we're in. The jurisprudence is supposed to tell legislatures what to do because that's whose job it is to draw maps. In fact, what they have created is a situation that creates a litigation game. It tells courts, it really is a roadmap for courts on how to redo the whole thing. And that's not what they're supposed to do. And we started to move away in the Charleston County decision that came out last year, where Justice Alito very clearly said federal judges aren't supposed to be drawing these maps. Well, hallelujah. And thank you for that. Because they aren't. The Constitution says the legislature is supposed to draw the maps. But when you get into litigation in one of these cases, everything the legislature did goes out the window. It becomes a litigation game of experts and fact-finding by a federal court judge, which is extremely difficult to get overturned by courts of appeal and by the Supreme Court. So you're handcuffed once those factual findings are made, and that's where we were in Robinson, we were handcuffed by the factual findings of the judge that were never not reversed by the Court of Appeal and were aligned very closely by design, in my opinion, to the Alabama case. And so we were not in a good position in Robinson, but now we're actually addressing the issue that we tried to raise in Robinson. So I don't know what they'll do. I think there is a space where they could rejigger all their jurisprudence and not declare Section 2 of the Voting Rights unconstitutional. But Justice Kavanaugh has floated that in his dissent in the Miller v. Milligan Alabama case.
Liz, are you in a position to say if the Supreme Court does ultimately rule that this map is unconstitutional, do you believe that we'll be able to have a new map in time for the next congressional race? Or is that happening? Is that starting in March, the primaries maybe?
So the primaries under the current dates start in March. I think the legislature could come in and change some of those dates and allow for more time. Will the Supreme Court issue their opinion? I mean, they know what our dates are. They will know what our dates are if we change our dates. And so, they can issue the opinion or they can hold the opinion. I have no control over that. I do think that the legislature can come in and rejigger the dates a little bit to give a little more time for the for the Supreme Court to rule. At the end of the day, I think that we are going to see an improvement no matter what happens. I think that you will see an improvement in the jurisprudence around Section 2, or you will see, a kind of massive sea change with Section 2. But either way, I do think we're about to see something very consequential that will happen, and our legislature can respond accordingly.
Liz, thank you for your work and all that you continue to do for the state of Louisiana. I have one last question, though, on the redistricting. Was there anything that could have prevented the legislature in 2024 from defending the current map? The map that Speaker Mike Johnson said he thought was constitutional. And I think Paul Hurd also said that map was constitutional, that there were some other maps that were offered. Were there alternatives to drawing what appears to be a classically racially gerrymandered map?
No, I really don't think there are. I mean, not in the sense that. So the first part of your question was the first map constitutional? I believe that it was. I argued that it was, and we got shut down by every court and the Court of Appeal. So I think that we were in a position where Judge Dick was going to draw a new map, or we could draw a new map. But that map was not going to stay in place one way or the other. And I do not think that we would have been successful in the litigation had we not drawn a new map. And, you have to dig a little deeper, I think, into the appellate process to understand why. But as I said before, we were handcuffed by the fact finding of the district court judge. The Supreme Court had not moved to where it is right now yet. And so you can't look at this question pending right now and think, well, we would have won this two years ago. We weren't going to win it 2 years ago. We weren't going to. I tried over and over and over again. And we kept getting shut down. I had the case in the United States Supreme Court, and they sent it back for evaluation in light of Miller, and we didn't win. I think now the second question is, could you have drawn another map? The directive we had by the judge was to draw a majority-minority map. That's the question that I think is kind of being evaluated now that we couldn't get them to evaluate then. So it's kind of strange, but here we are really litigating a question that arose that I tried to raise in the first litigation.
Yeah.
Could we, I think the question is, and this is a question that I think will come up, and the Robinson plaintiffs have attempted both in Robinson and in Calais to propose a separate map, the map that ran along the river. And that was the map that the plaintiffs proposed in the Robinson case. I don't think that map is any different than this one. So if this one's unconstitutional, then I think that one is also unconstitutional, because they both require you to crack and pack Black voters in order to create that majority minority district.
Which is a violation of the 14th Amendment.
That's what the court's going to decide, right? We argued that in Robinson. The Robinson plaintiffs are arguing that that is necessary, using basically solving the Section 2 violation is going to give a compelling interest that satisfies strict scrutiny. So as lawyers, I think y'all understand, like, there is this level where if it's triggered strict scrutiny, that doesn't mean that it is automatically unconstitutional. You just have to have a compelling state interest that's very narrowly drawn to solve that problem that is a compelling state interest. That's what they're arguing now, and I'm not sure that argument's going to carry the day.
Yeah. Well, I don't think
we're not arguing that. I mean, we're not arguing that. We have been consistently arguing that you can't violate the Equal Protection Clause to satisfy a Section 2 violation. We've argued that all along. We were told, go draw the map, so we went and drew the map. And I supported that decision to draw the new map because I knew Judge Dick was going to draw the map if we didn't draw the map. So I think the legislature did the right thing. I do. I think they did the right thing. And I think that the court needs to address this trick box that they have put states in, where Judge Dick believed it was entirely okay to violate the Equal Protection Clause to satisfy a Section 2 violation, a statutory violation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that any court would have any authority to order our legislature to draw a district that is racially gerrymandered. So in order to satisfy Section 2, if you have to violate the 14th Amendment regarding racial discrimination, you can't do it. So I don't think our legislature really should have felt burdened to draw a map that was highly questionable as far as the racial gerrymandering.
I mean, look, I understand. I think a lot of people agree with you, Chris, but the problem is we were being ordered to do it. And we had found no sanctuary for that opinion. Like, we argued that. And I found no safe harbor for it. No, they were ordered to draw a majority-minority map. They were ordered to draw a majority-minority map.
I agree, but they were not ordered to draw a majority-minority map if it required them to violate the Constitution.
There's only two maps you can draw, and they both do the same thing because of the way that our population is spread. If you look at the map they drew that the Robinson plaintiffs proposed that went down the river, or you look at the other map, which was kind of the Clio map, they both do pretty much the same thing. The only difference is that one pulls Black population out of Monroe and the other one pulls it out of Shreveport. That's really the only difference, because we don't have enough Black population to create a performing majority-minority district unless you pull it out of those places. And so there was never any dispute over that was the only two ways to draw the second district. And so the question that you are saying is decided, is clear, is not clear. It is the question that the Supreme Court needs to answer. It seems clear to you. It seemed clear to me when I was defending Robinson, and yet there we were being shut down at every turn by the courts of appeal and being told, go draw the map. So we could have defied the court and done exactly what they told.
It looks like we lost Liz. It says the recording stopped on her side. Let's see.
Hang on a second.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And it may be better, Liz. I think your recording was cutting out, so maybe just don't join with your video.
I got a spam call and it interrupted my, I don't know why. It shouldn't have interrupted anything, but it did.
No one's
I get them all day long. So,
Liz,
it's been frustrating.
What if the position had been, but what if the position had been, okay, we're going to fight against this. We're going to defend
we would have been exactly like Alabama. and Alabama got shut down. I mean, you got to go study the Alabama case and see what happened to Alabama. Alabama was accused of being racist. They were accused of perpetuating a history of violating the Voting Rights Act by the judges. And so, that's the problem that we faced. I
But you would have
honestly
won.
don't think,
But you would have
no, I
won.
wouldn't have. I
Well, you
wasn't
won.
winning, Chris. I didn't win. I
Well, I
lost.
think it is. Well, you
Y'all
won. You
are
won.
rewriting history. I'm sorry, you're rewriting the history. We're winning now only because we drew the district. Only because we drew the district that the court demanded that we draw. Are we in the court now with this question posed? We weren't there before. And so I think, look, I'll argue this all day long with anybody who wants to argue it, because I lived through it and I argued these cases and I
Yeah.
took it up every single time to the Court of Appeal, every possible way. I mandamused the judge twice. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
safe harbor for us.
So we
So
could. So we
I,
agreed. So
I
it was good that we
understand that
agreed.
people,
Yeah, I was going to
yeah,
say.
it was
So
good that
so
we
it was
did
good
what
that
we
we
did.
agreed. It was good that we drew really a racially gerrymandered district to give the court the opportunity to say that it's a racially gerrymandered district.
There were two options, both of which required us to pull Black population from all of the communities of interest down. One went to the left, one went to the right, but there's only one way to do it. And so, the question is, does that violate the Equal Protection Clause? We
Well, so you're
argued
saying there's only
in,
one way to do it. There's no really way to do it without violating the Constitution, is what you were saying. There's no way to do it without violating the constitutional 14th Amendment, right? Because if you have to violate the 14th Amendment in order to satisfy the racial dilution requirement in Section 2, then you can't do it. And you just say we can't.
no, you're assuming the answer to the question, Chris. You're
Okay.
assuming that it violates the 14th Amendment. That's the question the Supreme Court is going to answer. And so the answer is not assumed. We don't know the answer. And while it seems, easy to answer for you, and it certainly seemed that way to us when we were defending the first map, courts have told us that we had to do this anyway. And the real core of the question is going to be whether and this is what the court will determine, is whether there's a compelling state interest that satisfies the 14th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause. That is the question.
Yes, and I guess I would
So we
submit that
said we
drawing a
can't do
district
this
based around
without pulling and cracking and packing. And they said, go do it anyway. So we did it. And there's only two maps that you can draw where you can meet the standards that have been required by the court's jurisprudence to create a performing majority minority district. That's not just the court's jurisprudence. That is what the experts say. You've got to have 55% Black population for a major or Latino or whatever the minority is that you're trying to create the performing district for. So it has to be 55% to be a performing district.
Yes.
There was only one way. There were two ways to do that.
Is the current district an unconstitutional racial gerrymander?
I am not going to answer that question. The Supreme Court's going to answer that question. It depends on what they do to their jurisprudence, Chris. We argued in the first part of this case that under their current jurisprudence, that map survives. If they change it, it doesn't.
Do you think that do you believe that it should be vacated? The district should be vacated?
I think the court needs to change its jurisprudence. That's what I think it needs to do. I'm going to defend the law that the legislature passed, and I won't back away from that. It was a supermajority of a Republican legislature who passed the map to protect political preferences that we would not have been able to protect if we let the judge draw the map. But there were only two options for us at the time. She was going to draw the map, or we were going to draw the map. And so either way, we were going up, on a new map. And so I think that they did the right thing. I think they drew the map that protected political preferences. It protected Mike Johnson. It protected Julia Letlow. And under the court's current jurisprudence, that map would survive. If they change their jurisprudence and they align it and give us better direction about addressing this conflict between Section 2 and the Equal Protection Clause, which I have begged them to do, then, maybe the map doesn't survive. I don't know. But I'm not, I have taken both positions in this case because it's a very awkward, you know, position the courts have put us in. And
It
that's
is
why
a
I've
tough
said
position to
over
be
and
in.
over and over again, it's over and over and over again. The court needs to change its jurisprudence on Section 2.
Yeah, it
Well,
is a
Liz,
tough position to be in for sure.
absolutely. Thank you so
Appreciate
much
y'all's
for spending
position.
some time.
I'm the one that's had to defend the cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much. It's just really fun to sit here and see how much fight our AG has. It's just an excellent marker for our state to know that you know how to fight and you're doing it admirably. So thank you so much for taking some time today.
Appreciate
Thanks for
y'all and I
sparring with
appreciate your
Chris
Absolutely.
position too.
and
Yeah.
because you spar with Chris
It's
means that I
always a
don't have
pleasure to
to.
be with you,
So
Liz, and that's the reason why. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be with you, Liz, and I love the fact that we can be open and and respect each other. And you're doing, on balance, an outstanding job, particularly with regard to these perverted sex predators on this platform. And I hope that you're successful in really cleaning that up. It's a
Yeah. Thanks. And look, I think on redistricting, I'm confident that we're going to end up in a better place as a country with this next opinion. So, whatever happens with our map, I think that the opinion is going to be a super important one. And I think it's going to, improve things in litigation around the country and redistricting. So keep your fingers crossed for that. No matter what the outcome is, that's a good outcome if it helps to fix Section 2 jurisprudence.
beautiful.
always
Well,
forward.
yeah.
Right.
Thank you so much, Liz. And we have so much else we'd want to talk to you about, so we'll try and get you back on soon. But thank you so much for your time today.
Good to be with you. I'm
God
happy to
bless.
come back another time. Yeah. Okay. Bye,
Thank
y'all.
you. Bye
Take
bye.
care.
All right, and we will just break quickly for a short ad. Hey, Danielle Walker here. I'd love for you to check out my online boutique, Lux Lion. My mission for Lux Lion is to showcase innovative African designers and sustainable, mission-driven brands. To do that, I bring you stunningly beautiful handcrafted jewelry and accessories from some of my absolute favorite places on earth. Small batch wholesale for storefronts is also available. Join me in celebrating African artistry and shop now at luxlion.us. Use promo code FREEDOM for an additional 10% off your purchase. I think my bandwidth is still struggling now, but I think it was a great conversation. I can't say enough how much I appreciate what she's doing specifically on the child predator issue. She mentioned it, but there was this young man who was working with law enforcement and he referred 6 child predators and they were arrested. I mean, he worked directly with law enforcement and Liz even mentioned it. He was banned from the website, and I believe he even got a cease and desist order saying that he's, needs to stop referring child predators to the law enforcement.
Yeah, that is just the most perverse thing that at some point in the future, which is why I asked her about that, this has to be elevated to the level of a criminal indictment. And I think her concern was that she may not have been able to establish the specific intent to allow these predators on their site. And you have to have that for a criminal prosecution, but it's very close to that. It's very close to that, I would say, to criminal in nature. And it's on such a broad scale, Danielle. It staggered me, the scope of this platform, Roblox.
Yeah. And not only that, Chris, some of the reporting from parents about what their children have experienced on these sites is absolutely reprehensible and is absolutely criminal. So while Liz may not be bringing a criminal charge against them, I would encourage any parent whose children have suffered, I think they should.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And I think on the redistricting, I think that the Attorney General's office, I believe now, is trying to get this current district struck down as an unconstitutional gerrymander. That's what the Liz is saying. And I think that it is so appropriate that our Attorney General is on board with that, regardless of the progression that got her to this point. I think, speaking of which, Danielle, I heard yesterday off the cuff here a little bit that Donald Trump is revisiting Operation Warp Speed. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And so think about that. He has been pushing that for so long as a monumental achievement, and now he is severely second guessing all of it. That's what a leader does, and I think Liz is she had her office has the position now to get us the results that we need.
Yeah, and that would have been another great thing to cover with her if we had more time, because I know she was very much opposed to the COVID mandates. So hearing her perspective on how this re-look at Operation Warp Speed and at these mRNA vaccines would be pretty interesting. I think she's probably
Yeah,
got a nice
absolutely.
salty
I
take on
mean,
that.
Liz Muriel is a exactly. I mean, Liz Muriel, she was very instrumental in blockading some of these vaccine mandates right here in Louisiana in schools. She was very strong on that issue, and she's just done a lot of wonderful things for our state.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pleasure to have her on today. I hope we can have her on a day where we have fewer tech interference and can have a smoother conversation. But I appreciate that she was willing to stay in there and spar with you, Chris. There was a couple times I wanted to just kind of get in and say, "Okay, all right, let's stop." But, it's an important
She's yeah, and it's just it's an interesting issue, and it's an interesting discussion, and I think she's got her eye on the ball on this.
Yeah, well, the truth is, Chris, the real media doesn't dig to the next question on issues like this, and these are things that have been concerning people across our state. This issue of the congressional map is a huge one that has national and international implications, truly. So, hearing her perspective, hearing her reasoning and her logic through this, understanding that she's fought through several different cases on this is just it's a fascinating thing, and I think it's an important conversation to have, because I don't think that people are necessarily asking the next question and trying to dig in and understand where her office is coming from on this. So to me, I think is a great conversation to have, and win, lose, or draw, like she said, we're going to get better clarity out of the Supreme Court after the re-arguments on October 15th. But I can't think that if it's the fourth time in history that the Supreme Court has called for re-arguments, that this is just going to be a small case focused on Louisiana and go away. I think this is going to have pretty monumental implications for the future of congressional map drawing.
Yeah, no question about it. My position from the beginning, Danielle, has been that we should have fought to defend, as Paul Hurd said, the original map, and because it was constitutional, it would have survived scrutiny. Liz's position was that it would have been litigated, been caught up in the courts. But if there's ever an issue that's worth litigating quickly, is issues related to our votes and our districts, and it's a fundamental. So that's an issue that's worth litigating, and if they had litigated it all the way up to the Supreme Court, they would have won, because the Supreme Court looks like they're on the verge of declaring that district unconstitutional, and
Well, Chris,
probably yeah.
sorry, just to ask you. So let's follow the argument. If Judge Dick had drawn the map, if they said, no, we're going to appeal, and Judge Dick drew the map, can they just sue the judge for drawing an unconstitutional map and it's not even her right to draw the map?
They could have reconvened, looked at it, and said, this is an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. We can't do this constitutionally. And they would have had to go fight on the issue. I just don't think that any court has the authority to order the legislature to do something that they're not constitutionally allowed to do.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Although, to be fair, we've seen that lots of judges in the last, year, 2, 3 years are doing things that are completely unconstitutional every single day of the week to thwart the will of the people. Full stop. You've seen what they've done across the board with trying to slow Trump's executive orders, trying to slow deportations, and completely block his agenda.
Yeah, that is very true. But we're talking about the legislature here, and the legislature's primary responsibility to govern elections. And it just seems like they sort of surrendered to something that Paul Hurd said was, an obvious racially drawn district. And if you can't draw a district majority minority without violating the Constitution, where you have to go all over the state it's clearly a racial gerrymander. And Paul Hurd thought there was no question about it. In fact, he said that 90% of this current district was declared constitutional decades ago.
And Chris,
so it's just hard to understand why they didn't fight more.
is it your perspective that had they continued to fight, we would have just gotten to the Supreme Court sooner?
Exactly. I think
Okay.
if we had continued to fight aggressively, we would have just gotten to this point in all likelihood much sooner, because there's no question that this district is unconstitutional. It's clearly a racial gerrymander, and it just seems like people should have been able to look at this and say that from the beginning instead of waiting for a court, even the Supreme Court, to tell us that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it would have
that's
gotten there
true.
sooner if it had gotten, if it was
You know, I
necessary.
am
So I
thankful,
just,
Chris, that we are
maybe the
in a
lack
period of
of
time right
urgency
now.
on the
And
issue more broadly.
sorry, I think I was having a bandwidth. It was circling on my side. But what I was going to say is I think I can be thankful right now, at least, that we're in a period of time where we can call things we can call things what they are. Whereas this time 2 years ago, even having a conversation, an honest conversation about racial gerrymandering was like welcoming the bolt of lightning to yourself, under the Biden admin. So we have to appreciate how far we've come politically and culturally, socially in the last 2 years as well, to appreciate, perhaps the position of Liz and perhaps the position of the legislature being a little more gun shy when it comes to doing the constitutional thing whenever they were put in a position of having to do the socially acceptable thing as mandated by an out of line judge.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
true. But we can move with urgency now, go into session, and get to work sooner
yeah,
rather than later, as Paul
yeah.
Hemp said.
Absolutely. And one thing that maybe we should mention, Chris, is that we are urging this legislature to go into special session before September 15th, so that there can't be any concern about not being able. We can head this off at the pass, right? If the position of the state is that this is not the map we want, this is not the map we believe in, this is the map that we were dealt, then why doesn't the legislature go ahead, go into special session, create the map that's constitutional, and do it so that we can be in a position to have that in place for March or whenever they're able to get a ruling on the map. But I think that if we delay, that's only putting off the inevitable and potentially giving Cleo Fields another term.
That's the issue. That's the issue. That's why time is of the essence. Because if the legislature does not move proactively, Danielle, and make this right legislatively, then until after the arguments in October, when they go in and have their arguments, I mean, they should be doing this now. They should have their ducks in a row now. And so, the moment this comes down, they're ready to go, not
Yeah.
reacting.
Yeah. What I did appreciate about what Liz said was that they have the legislature has the ability to push back the dates of the primaries. I didn't realize that the legislature in any way set the dates of primaries. Were you aware of that?
I think that I was, and
Okay.
that is something that it would be plausible to push back the dates if necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be part of what they're aiming to do. Yeah, and they probably need to confer with Secretary of State Landry to make sure that she can achieve that in a timely manner.
Yep.
All right.
Well, Danielle, as
A couple of announcements,
always,
Chris. I'm so sorry. Let me do a couple of announcements. I'll cut you off.
sure.
But the next iteration of the Voting Machine Horse and Pony Show will regroup next week, Tuesday and Thursday, in the old Governor's Mansion starting at 9 a.m. On Tuesday, it's the clear ballot, clear vote voting system, and Thursday is ES&S. Please be there. Go and show your lack of support for these systems, but show your interest and make sure that I think having citizens there reporting on what's going on is absolutely critical. I don't know, Chris, if you
Absolutely.
want to mention that. Was ES&S the company that sued Secretary of State Kyle Ardwine, Chris, last time?
I believe so, yeah, for saying that that there was irregularity in the bidding process. Exactly. But yeah, I think, Danielle, that there is a lot of pressure on our Secretary of State's office now from multiple levels to pay attention to the citizens with regard to our voting system. And it is, you know, I don't know how it's all going to break, but I still believe that there is significant hope to draw back, this massive investment of our money in electronic voting machines.
Yeah. And I don't know that President Trump can be more clear in his statements than he has been, which is same day voting, mandated citizenship, proof of citizenship when you go to vote, and paper ballots. That was a truth that he put out at the end of last week. I think he's just getting stronger and stronger and more emphatic on his point. So I would very much like for all of the executives in our state and all of the legislature to pay attention to what he's saying. And Chris, if Secretary of State Landry moves forward with the purchase of these machines in the face of all that President Trump is saying, in the face of all that ODNI Gabbard is saying, it's an absolute slap in the face to the people, and it is a huge, huge waste of our taxpayer dollars.
And absolutely would be just callous disregard for the obvious increasing will of Louisiana citizens and the will of the Trump administration that has weighed in on an essential issue that's a matter of critical infrastructure for our whole country. And there's no way that she can claim that she's not aware of the obvious discrepancy between what she's doing and what the administration is doing and saying. And so I think that there is a lot of pressure on the Secretary of State right now.
Yeah, and I would dare to say that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence has a lot more expertise at her disposal to look into these machines than we do at the state level. So why don't we just take a breath and let's see how that shakes out, see what DNI Gabbard has to say in her report. Probably enough on that for today. I'll get myself all riled up again. But I'll just mention one last announcement. Tomorrow, I will be joined on For the Love of Freedom with our good friend Joe Hoft. You won't want to miss it. Same time, same place, 10 a.m. Central. And if you love what we're bringing here on the State of Freedom, if you're enjoying the perspective, the guests, the honesty, please consider becoming a monthly supporter. You can do that at Freedom State.
God bless you, and marching along we shall go, Danielle.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. God bless you. Glad to have you back, man.
Amen.
Meet the world's first living, full-spectrum, certified organic CBDA hemp extract. Nesa's hemp oil was extracted from seed to bottle without chemicals, solvents, or heavy metals, and it surpasses world-class standards for purity. This pure and powerful CBDA has been proven to reduce aches and pains, ease mental tension, and promote better sleep. To get yours today, visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.